Hello, my name is Neha and you're watching this video on the Pratyancha channel. This is the second part of the poem by William Wordsworth, which is an ode, and it's entitled Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Childhood. If you haven't watched the first part of this poem, you can find the link of it in the description box below. We discussed in the first part that Wordsworth here is talking about the blessedness of childhood, that how a child is so close to the celestial light, that how a child is so close to being one with the cosmos. The second thing that he has broached is that there is perhaps a life before we are born which is spent in the lap of God, which is spent in heaven, and then there is an afterlife as well, because he says that the soul that we are born with comes from a long distance, comes from afar, and therefore the soul has a longer journey than this one mortal life that we are blessed with. And then he speaks about, of course, like I said, the innocence and the heavenly instinct of the young age of a human being, which seems to lose itself as the human being becomes an adult. Because as you become an adult, there is reasoning, there is responsibility, there are concerns, there are cares, and no longer do you feel that you, first of all, are very much in charge of your life, your destiny, the world, and second, you also do not feel that you find as much joy in the experiences that you had before. And finally, this poem will deal with the fact that whatever come may, still we have a human heart, and therefore not all emotion and not all sensitivity is lost. We shall see how he discusses these themes in the rest of the poem. He goes on to say, earth fills her lap with pleasures of her own, yearnings she hath in her own natural kind, and even with something of a mother's mind, and no unworthy aim, the homely nurse doth all she can, to make her foster child, her inmate man, forget the glories he hath known, and that imperial palace whence he came. Whence? Wherefrom? The imperial palace wherefrom man came is the kingdom of God, heaven. And now he compares heaven to earth, and he says that I'm not saying that earth is something bad or earth does not love humanity. He says earth is like a mother to us, like a nurse to us. She treats us very well, it has pleasures of her own, and yet this earth treats man as a foster child. Foster child when someone is not a biological child of someone. So earth treats us as a child who perhaps does not belong to her. And why does the poet say this? Because he feels we truly belong to God. We truly belong to the kingdom of God, and therefore we are foster children of earth. And he also uses one more negative word in this stanza, which is inmate. It's almost as if that we have been put into a prison. Inmates, criminals who are put into prisons, and he has used the word prison earlier on in the poem as well. He feels that with this birth we have lost our opportunity to be one with the cosmos, to be basking in heavenly celestial light, and the child and the youth still closer to that kingdom where they have come from, but as an adult man we lose our connect with it. So he says that it's not like earth is bad, earth is like a mother to us. She does not have unworthy aims, it's not like she does something very negative to us, but still she treats us like a foster child, like an inmate, and she tries her level best that we forget the glories of the imperial palace, the kingdom of God, wherefrom we have come. Then he says, let's now look at this child, because he's already said it earlier that it is childhood or infancy or the boy who still is closer to this kingdom. So he says, behold the child among his newborn blisses, a 6 years darling of a pygmy size. See where amid work of his own hand he lies, fretted by sallies of his mother's kisses, with light upon him from father's eyes. See at his feet some little plan or chart, some fragment from his dream of human life, shaped by himself with newly learned art, a wedding or a festival, a mourning or a funeral. And this hath now his heart, and unto this he frames his song. Then will he fit his tongue to dialogues of business, love, or strife. So he says, look at this child, he's newborn in his blisses, and even if he becomes a 6-year-old boy, he's of a little tiny size and he's the apple of his mother's eye. His father looks very benevolently at him, and he's playing, he has the playthings of life, and usually what children do is they emulate what adults do. So children play with maybe kitchen sets, or they play with Lego blocks, so they create buildings which adults make as real buildings, or they play with the kitchen set to make dishes, or to busy themselves with activities perhaps which they see are happening in the kitchen of their house. So here the poet is saying that the child is now imitating maybe a wedding or a funeral or something which is a festival, and he frames his songs to these. So he maybe is talking about poems about these things. So the child has made the playthings which the adults called real life. And then when this child will grow up, a very important line of the poem, Wordsworth says here, he will fit his tongue to dialogues of business, love, or strife. Soon he'll leave his childhood behind, and he will grow up to speak either of business, of trade, of dealings, of money, and he'll talk about love, of maybe setting up a family with someone, and of strife. There'll be a lot of struggle in his life. So he'll soon leave these playthings beyond and his blisses of childhood beyond, and will grow into a man who'd be worried about all these things. But it will not be long ere this be thrown aside. The little actor cons another part, filling from time to time his humorous stage with all the persons down to palsied age that life brings with her in her equipage, as if his whole vocation were endless imitation. And he says, this doesn't stop. It is not just like when he is a child, he or she is imitating what he or she sees adults around doing. No, it will not be long before this particular activity would be thrown aside, which the child is doing at present. The little actor will then take on another part. So, in this human life, all we do is take part after part after part, as if we are playing a character, a role in some sort of a stage play. And in that sense, we're always imitating. We're not living out the real us. So it's not just child's play, which is perhaps a kitchen set or a Lego block set, but in general, this is the truth of human life, that we just play these parts in imitating someone or something else. And this is what life brings in her equipage. This is the equipment of life. This is what life does to us. And as if the whole vocation of living the life was this endless imitation. We're completely imitating others, or things that we want to be, or things that we who we think we are, but we are not really being ourselves. We have lost that touch with our true nature, which we possessed when we were in the kingdom of God. He then says, he again is speaking to the child, thou, whose exterior semblance doth belie thy soul's immensity, thou best philosopher, who yet dost keep thy heritage, thou eye among the blind, that deaf and silent readest the eternal deep, haunted forever by the eternal mind, mighty prophet, seer, blessed, on whom those truths do rest, which we are toiling all our lives to find, in darkness lost, the darkness of the grave, thou over whom thy immortality broods like the day, a master over a slave. This is the stanza where for the first time a word from the title appears in the poem, immortality. And he says that the child in his state feels the intimation of immortality. He gets this message from the heavens because he's still so close to the kingdom of heaven that we are actually immortals, that we should not be worried with mortal cares, we should not be worried with what life brings to us. And he calls the child that you are really of a tiny size, but your soul is immense. You're the best philosopher, you're a prophet, you're a seer. So it's a child who can see very clearly. It's the child who knows the truth of the world. It's the child who's living as if he is supposed to live in that particular way. He or she is not yet imitating like adults do, or like they play parts on the stage of this world. And you have the eternal mind. And we are all our lives striving hard, toiling to find the truth of the world. And then in darkness we are lost, and finally we reach the grave. But you, my dear child, are immortal. Now you can question that how is a child immortal? Finally the child will grow into a young person and then eventually into an adult. But what he feels is that infancy or childhood are times when we still feel the immortality within us, when we still are intimated by the immortality. And that is why the title of the poem is Intimation of Immortality, and then he follows it by saying Recollections of Early Childhood. So it is only when I think of my early childhood I know that that was when I had felt that actually man is immortal, or we can experience the true joy, the true purpose of human life. And therefore he calls the child with all these names, that you're a philosopher, you are among the blind, we are blind, the adults are blind, we are deaf and silent, but you have that eternal mind to yourself, you're the seer, you're the prophet, and you have the intimation of immortality always coming to you because of your closeness to the heavenly kingdom. And over you, this immortality stands like a master over a slave. So you're almost controlled by that notion, by that heavenly light, that celestial delight of making you feel that you are in charge of the life that you are living, that you're not really a mortal who has concerns and cares and has to finish his tasks within a given span. A presence which is not to be put by, thou little child, yet glorious in the might of heaven-born freedom on thy being's height. Why with such earnest pains dost thou provoke the years to bring the inevitable yoke, thus blindly with thy blessedness at strife? Full soon thy soul shall have her earthly freight, and custom lie upon thee with a weight, heavy as frost and deep almost as life. He says, my dear child, when you're living so close to the celestial light, when you're living in the glory of heaven, then why is it that you plan to grow up? Why is it that you lose this absolute connect with the cosmos and you take upon a yoke? And you take that inevitable yoke, and you're doing this in blessedness. You're lost in your innocence. You are simply growing up. You don't know that finally you are being turned into someone who shall lose their connect with this heavenly kingdom. And soon, he says, your soul shall have her earthly freight. You know, freight, something which is carried as goods, and or it's a weight, and it's baggage that you carry. Your soul will have this baggage, and custom lie upon thee with a weight. And then this baggage will exert its weight upon you. You will be weighed down by it. You will not be as free and frolicking and joyous like as a child you were. Why do you do this? Why does this come upon you? And this comes upon you while in your innocence you're simply doing your own thing, and suddenly one day you find out that you're grown up, and then the soul has this weight to carry. And he uses the word custom here with the pun intended that a customs duty is to be paid on the goods or the baggage that is taken from one place to another. And then this is the problem that you will face, that these things will weigh you down. They will tell you or teach you the lessons of a mortal life, and you, my dear child, have to be immortal. But then you will feel heavy as frost and deep almost as life. And suddenly one day you'll wake up to realize that you're no more a child, and life weighs upon you. It lies around you, about you, like a frost that confuses you, like a weight that is weighing itself upon your shoulders. Oh joy, that in our embers is something that doth live, that nature yet remembers what was so fugitive. The thought of our past years in me doth breed perpetual benediction. Not indeed for that which is most worthy to be blessed, delight and liberty, the simple creed of childhood, whether busy or at rest, with new-fledged hope still fluttering in his breast. He feels that adulthood is actually the burning away of life, and in our embers nature does remember that which was so fugitive. So it's almost like we are already through our journey when childhood is over. He feels once childhood is over, it's only the last embers that remain, the last bits of our life that are smoldering away. But such is the rule of nature that we do remember something which was so fleeting, which was so ephemeral. Childhood just came and went by, and therefore I can still remember my early childhood. And that is why the phrase in the title, Recollections of Early Childhood. I can still remember that early childhood because by a law of nature, even if something is very fleeting, very ephemeral, we do have a memory of it. I remember it, and this thought of the past years, I feel that gives me perpetual benediction. I feel I have been blessed by this wonderful gift called my early childhood. But he says, I'm not saying that I'm blessed because I think of the delight or the liberty or the freedom that I had during childhood, or with the new hopes that were still arising inside of me when my childhood was by my side. I don't feel blessed because of all this. That was there for sure, but I feel blessed because of a reason. And now he'll tell us what is that reason. Not for these I raise the song of thanks and praise, but for those obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized, high instincts before which our mortal nature did tremble like a guilty thing surprised. But for those first affections, those shadowy recollections, which, be they what they may, are yet the fountain light of all our day, and yet a master light of all our seeing. So I'll explain the last bit of the stanza first and then go back to the first bit of the stanza. He says that I will not sing my songs of thank you and my songs of praise for this joy and freedom that I had in my childhood, but I will sing it because I was blessed then with a fountain light, with a celestial, heavenly understanding of the world. I was in tune with the world, I was in tune with the cosmos, and this is a master light of all our seeing. If we are not blessed with this light during our childhood, we perhaps will not even be able to make anything of our lives. So I sing my songs of thanks and praise. I feel that I was perpetually blessed. He uses the phrase perpetual benediction in the earlier stanza to say he feels blessed when he thinks about his childhood, and he feels blessed because he feels then he was blessed with the celestial light. He also says that I'm going to also sing for the obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized, high instincts before which our mortal nature did tremble like a guilty thing surprised. When you are a child, you are ruled by immortality. So whatever questions your mortal nature puts forth, like what is the truth of something, what is the sense of something, these questions just vanish away. They do arise in you, but in childhood you do not give two hoots about getting to the reality and the truth of it all, because you have these high instincts before which the mortal nature always loses ground, always loses the battle, and these instincts then inside of you make you feel that you are blessed with this heavenly knowledge, this heavenly comprehension, and therefore he feels that this is why I sing my song of thanks and praise, because when I recollect my early childhood, I also recollect that that was the time when I was intimated with the joy of immortality. And this is where the title of the poem comes from. So he's very happy that he had this wonderful childhood. And then he speaks to this light, which he says the master light of everything, the fountain light of everything. He speaks to this light. Uphold us, cherish, and have power to make our noisy ears see moments in the being of the eternal silence, truths that wake to perish never, which neither listlessness nor mad endeavor, nor man nor boy, nor all that is at enmity with joy can utterly abolish or destroy. And then he speaks to this light, praise, almost praise to it, that you please uphold us and cherish us. And these were our noisy years, and these were years that see moments in the being of eternal silence. These are truths that wake to perish never. The ultimate truths we knew were the truths that we knew in childhood. Please, you must take care of us as we become adults, as we go through life. And he says that anything cannot destroy these truths. These recollections will always be yours to relive and to feel one with the cosmos. And whether it is listlessness, meaning not wanting to do anything in life, being ravaged by envy, or mad endeavor, that you are in absolute strife of something, whether you become a man or a boy, or any other negative emotion that stands against the feeling of joy and happiness, cannot take away the happiness or the oneness that you felt with the universe thoughts when you think of the celestial light. So he prays to the celestial light, please guide us, please uphold us and cherish us, and tell us that this joy will always be forever. It cannot be killed by anything. Hence, in a season of calm weather, though inland far we be, our souls have sight of that immortal sea which brought us hither. So on a season of calm weather, on a day when we are contemplating, there is peace around us, we do feel we are much inland. We are not on the coast. Yet we have the vision of that immortal sea. Immortal sea, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, which brought us here, which brought us hither, can in a moment travel thither. And then in a moment we can travel there and see the children sport upon the shore and hear the mighty waters rolling evermore. So yes, on a day when I'm thinking very deeply like this, though I may be much inland, I'm much farther from the shore, I'm not on the coast, but I can see that immortal sea. I can see the children on the shore, they're celebrating, they're playing, and he's already said it, that the children are very close to the shore, and I hear the rolling waters evermore, and I can feel this immortality around me, this immortality, the fountain light which guides us. So now he has that recollection from early childhood, and he remembers that this light he had experienced, and he's prayed to the celestial light that you must uphold us, must cherish us, must guide us through this mortal existence. And he says, because our souls have this memory, though as human beings we know we are far inland, that is, we have traversed our journey from being a child to an adult, yet we do remember the immortality, the sea of immortality which lies beyond the shore. We still can have a glimpse of it. And as on a calm day, on a peaceful day, in a moment of contemplation, I think of that sea of immortality. I can imagine children playing on the shore. I can imagine that this was also my blessing. This was also given to me as a gift from heaven, that my soul remembered this beautiful celestial light that it has gotten from the kingdom of God. It had gotten from the kingdom of God. So once again, he feels that there is no need to grieve. Perhaps I should just be joyous. So he goes on to say, then sing you birds, then sing you birds, sing, sing a joyous song, and let the young lambs bound as to the tabor's sound. We in thought will join your throng, ye that pipe and ye that play, ye that through your hearts today feel the gladness of the May. So let's all feel it's summertime. Let's all the birds and the lambs do what they're doing as per their nature, and I will join you in this happiness. What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass or glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind. So he says, I know my childhood will never come back, but I have a memory of that childhood, I have a memory of that light. So nothing can bring back that hour that I spent lying in the grass, looking at the sun, listening to the birds, but we'll grieve not. I will not be sad anymore, and I will rather try to see strength in whatever has remained behind, in the primal sympathy which having been must ever be. Now, if that primal sympathy was with me then it should always be, because that is something which is the root of all existence, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in ears that bring the philosophic mind. So he says that that primal light reflects itself in other experiences of adulthood, which is when we are in deep pain and then a soothing thought comes in. That comes because we are blessed with that primal light. Or when there is death and destruction all around and still we keep up our faith, that faith is a manifestation of that light. And then finally he says, or of the philosophic mind. We understand, we comprehend, our mind, our reasoning, if it gives us cause for concern, if it gives us cause to worry, it also gives us philosophy, and therefore it gives us understanding. So yes, if that primal light was once in my childhood, I do see that it is manifest in many other forms in our adulthood. It is the soothing thought in our mind amidst pain. It is the thought which brings faith when we are losing faith because there is death and destruction around, and it is the mind that can philosophize and understand. So that light does guide us, that light does remain with us through our lives. And now he comes to the conclusion of the ode. And O ye fountains, meadows, hills and groves, forebode not any severing of our loves. Don't you think that we are going to be separated from each other, or we are going to be severed from each other and we will be separated? No, we are still going to love each other. We'll be bound to each other in the bond of love. Yet in my heart of hearts I feel your might. I only have relinquished one delight, to live beneath your more habitual sway. So yes, I feel your might in my heart, and I may have lost that initial childhood experience of you, but that's fine. I still feel your might in my heart. I love the brooks which down their channels fret, even more when I tripped lightly as they. I love the brooks even more than I loved them in my childhood. They are going down their channels, and I would trip like them. I would flow or walk or jump about as smoothly as these brooks are in their channels. That is when I was a child. But I love these rivers far more than I loved them then. The innocent brightness of a newborn day is lovely yet. The clouds that gather around the setting sun do take a sober coloring from an eye that has kept watch over man's mortality. So yes, the sunrise any day is still as beautiful, and the setting sun, when it has clouds around it, these clouds are colored by the setting sun. That sun is referred to here as the eye which has kept watch over man's mortality. So it is the sun which has kept rising and kept setting, and it knows that life of a human being is a mortal span. So the sun remains, but we just die away, live out our lives, and we are gone. Another generation comes in. So he says that the sun knows another race has been, another palms are won. Winning a palm is a phrase which means you have gotten yourself a victory. So another race has run, another victory has been achieved, and time goes on. The sun keeps an eye upon our mortality. So I'm looking at all this, and I feel that I need to now say thanks to the human heart. Thanks to the human heart by which we live. Thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. To me the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. And he says that, yes, I've said that as we grow up, we lose our connect with the celestial light. But he ends with this optimism, saying that the celestial light, first of all, blesses our adulthood with thoughts which soothe, with faith that heals, and with a lot of philosophy which makes us understand. And finally, we have the human heart, and that human heart feels very deeply, very emotionally, very sensitively, and therefore I feel that even the smallest of flowers, even the most insignificant of natural occurrences can then give rise to thoughts that are very deep inside of me, and they're much deeper than any grief that comes to me or any sadness that comes to me. So yes, when we are children, we have these intimations of immortality, and these can be then recollected in adulthood. They can be recollected from our experiences of early childhood, and then they give us strength for our adult life. I hope you enjoyed the description of this poem as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. There are many other pieces by William Wordsworth that we have discussed on the channel. The links to all these pieces you shall find in the description box below. I like doing this video for you. I'll bring many more such videos for you in the future. Stay tuned. Thank you.